Coming up on Man Enough.
In groups, I can be big. It just happens naturally, and I like to entertain people. But the second I leave that group, I'm like into this really intense depression.
It was one of the first times I understood the private battle that so many famous comedians have had, like Robin Williams. Watching you over the last 8 years, like, go into that so that that doesn't happen to you has been such a gift.
I grew up, I had Tourette syndrome really bad. When I saw Jim Carrey do these movies and like Ace Ventura and all these stuff, so instead of like ticking, like I would be like, like I would just find a way to like do something funny. I latched onto that, and that became kind of my identity for a long time. Was I'm the funny guy, so this is how I can, cope.
Being man enough, what does that mean?
It's really manly to mess up, admit you're wrong, and then grow.
I couldn't accept that I was evil, so maybe I'm broken, but those broken things could be corrected.
Intimacy between a father and a son is me just wanting to put my head in your lap.
I love you, son.
You haven't called me benevolent sexist, but my experience is women are better.
Even if it's a positive, it's still not equality.
I don't blame men for that. I just blame the system.
This
Is
Man enough.
Hey everybody, welcome. Wait a minute, actually.
Oh.
I've been doing that for the last little bit, but I forgot that Justin's back.
No, please do. I
I
forgot.
thought
no,
it was a
no, we
bit.
want-
I
we
thought it
want-
was a bit.
I forgot how
loved
to
it.
do it.
Why don't you open up for us? See if you remember it.
I'm a little nervous to do that, to be perfectly
Do you
honest.
remember
let's
how
see
it
if you-
goes?
Hey, everybody.
Good job. Good job.
I'm Justin Baldoni. No, we do our names at the end now, right?
Just
We
go.
do our names a lot.
I really think you should start.
All right. Hey everybody, welcome back to Man Enough.
That sounds great.
I'm Jamie Heath.
I'm Liz Plank.
Can I go last now? I'm Justin Baldoni.
Please go last. Oh my goodness, this dude.
I actually think that Liz should go first, personally.
Wow, we definitely haven't had you for a while. It's a whole different
We're doing
thing.
age before beauty today.
Okay.
So glad you're back.
I'm so happy to be back.
It has been very different without you here. It's been wonderful. Liz is my
You
favorite
guys
person.
have been doing incredible. You've been
Thank
killing
you.
it. I've been supporting and championing, and
I mean, we feel like you've been there the whole time, right? Like even when Justin wasn't here, I felt we felt that you were here.
Yeah.
Your spirit
Jelly.
was really like.
that was.
truly.
You mean all the times I was trying to call Jamie during the middle of the
That
podcast?
Yeah, yeah, all that.
That
He's
too.
like, dude, I'm doing the podcast.
Your
That
podcast.
You're not
yeah.
here. But what are we doing today?
So these last batch of episodes of the season are really important to me. So everybody who's coming on the show are people that I admire and are very close to me personally in my life. And something we've been trying to make happen for a long time has been to get this particular amazing, beautiful, hilarious, deep, soulful man on the show, who was one of my dearest friends over the course of the 5 years that I was on Jane the Virgin, even though there was a couple years he wasn't there. And that is my brother, Brett Dier.
Hey, I'm crying. I'm tearing.
See,
Hey,
that's
what's
why,
up?
that's why I brought
thanks.
this. See?
Perfect. I'll just.
We
put
should
it
be
up.
sponsored by Kleenex, by the way.
Yeah.
Should we out
It
them?
makes no
Hint,
sense
hint.
that you're not. You make people cry a lot.
I
in
cry
a
a
good
lot,
way. You
yeah.
cry a lot.
All right.
Yeah.
Hey, dude.
Hey, Justin.
Hey, man.
Hey, everyone.
Hi, Brett.
Can we just call each other Raphael and Michael for the rest of the day?
Great.
I feel like we're past that.
Are we?
I can't.
I mean, I'm
do
not
it.
past it. I'm looking right next to you.
On any
guys.
given day, the amount of people that come up to you and say Michael is like probably insane, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, right?
Yeah.
You get it too.
I do a little bit.
I can't wait for people to call me Brett.
That's why we're here today.
Yeah, that's why we're here.
We're going to call you Brett the whole time.
Thank you so much.
Liz is gonna awkwardly, but she does it really well. Read your bio in front of you. I'm
Okay.
just
Yeah.
preparing you
Yeah.
now.
All right. Ready? What
Okay.
should I do?
You can stand there and look
Stand?
like.
You want me to stand?
You can do whatever you want.
Okay.
This is your moment to shine.
All right.
Brett, you're an actor. You're a writer. You're an artist from London, Ontario.
That's true.
And someone told me that you're French Canadian. Est-ce que tu parles français?
Oui, je peux parler un petit peu français, pas beaucoup, mais petit peu.
OK, ton français est bon, ton français est
Oui,
bon.
oui,
OK. So, Brett, you're also famously known for your work alongside Justin as Michael Cordero in Jane the Virgin. You were also in About My Father with Robert De Niro.
That's true.
And Maybe It's You, a really amazing rom-com with Veronica St. Clair. Welcome, Brett, to
Thank
Man
you so
Enough.
much. Thanks for having me. This place is a great set.
Thanks.
Whose guitar is that?
That was the guitar
Oh.
from the movie Clouds.
Sweet.
Yeah.
I saw that at the drive-in.
Yes, you came to the
I
premiere.
was there.
You
Yeah.
were.
Yeah.
You were at both our premieres, but you were
I was at
5
both.
feet apart too.
Yeah. Which there's a poster.
There's a poster right there.
How come it's not signed?
Because that was a special edition poster that I was trying to get the studio to release, but they went with a different image.
Oh.
And
The 5 Feet Apart poster for
5
those
Feet
of
Apart
us who
poster.
can't
Yeah,
see
we're
it.
talking about 5 Feet Apart.
Great movie. I like that movie a lot.
Yeah. You were there. Okay, little trivia.
Yeah.
Brett Dier is in 5 Feet Apart,
It's true. I was an extra.
and I'm in it with him.
Yeah.
And
We're doctors.
We're doctors in the background of a scene. Oh. And if you blink, you'll miss us. But I was directing from an iPad, and we both put on scrubs, and we were in the background.
Yeah.
And he was making the most inappropriate pee and poop jokes,
Probably.
and penis jokes.
I wouldn't doubt
Probably.
it. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I was trying not to laugh the entire time.
Well, doctors do deal with a lot of that,
Yeah, especially urologists.
especially urologists.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So look, this is going to be a
Get ready, guys.
this is going to be a fun time.
This was 5 years.
This is going to be fun. Obviously, you've got a lot to catch up on. Real quick, by the way, the first time I met you, you were showering in my house. Do you remember this?
I do remember that.
It was for Jane the Virgin, the premiere of the showing to the world.
Yeah.
And you came to my place with Justin.
Yeah.
And the first thing you said was like, "Hey man, good to meet you. Can I use your shower?"
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Yeah. So
Thank
you're
you so
welcome. So do you want to use the shower now?
Is there one here? You had really great soap, I remember.
Did he have a good bath? Like, because it's a whole thing, you know.
I don't remember this.
Oh, yeah.
I was there.
Yeah, you were there.
Yeah, you were there.
Yeah.
I remember.
Did
at
you
your
shower?
house?
You
In
didn't
my
shower.
house, yeah.
I guess I didn't.
You didn't
did it.
shower.
I guess. Well,
Okay.
I guess maybe you had just come from something.
Why did I need to shower so bad?
That's what I was going to ask you. But you didn't
I'm
need
trying to
shower.
think back.
No, you
What
probably
happened?
came from something and needed to. But in any case,
Hope so.
Justin, let's see if you remember. Or, I mean, Liz, you do it so well. You know what? Let's forget that Justin for a minute.
Yeah.
What's the first thing that we like to ask our guests?
Well, Brett, we
Yeah.
love to ask our guests, when is the last time that you didn't feel enough?
Well, must have been pretty recently. I feel like I go through it, but I'm getting better at being with the feeling of it. Because I'd probably say a week ago. It just comes in a wave, and
And what happened a week ago?
I think I was doing like artwork stuff, and I just started. When I first started sharing my art, I got really insecure. It really freaked me out.
Okay.
Yeah, because I was like worried about the judgments that could be. Like, oh, look at this actor posting art now, or something like that.
Okay.
So yeah, it made me feel a little small, and then I had to get to know why that is small, and then I figured it out.
What are some of those things that you had done so that you wouldn't no longer feel not enough?
Well, I like to talk to that part. That's what I've been learning in therapy, is to talk to that part, and like, where are you coming from? What is it that's causing these feelings? And a lot of it's childhood stuff. It all just seems to go back to that, like feeling small as a kid and all that stuff. So yeah,
Feeling small as a kid.
Brett and I have the same therapist,
yeah, we
You do.
do. We do.
and we do a lot of the same work in that area.
Yes, the best. She's the best. I'm so thankful for her. Oh my God, she saved my life, honestly.
Really?
Yeah.
One of the things that a lot of people don't know, you'll watch 100 episodes of Jane the Virgin, and you'll see like little bits of Brett's personality. But Brett, I believe, genuinely is one of the funniest human beings I've ever met.
Thanks,
He
Justin.
like I've always felt like if Jim Carrey had like passed away, Brett would be like the incarnation of Jim Carrey.
Really?
Well, that's
Like
so sweet.
they're so similar in so many ways, and they have such similar journeys. And do you remember there was a moment in season 1 where you asked me to come into your trailer, and we were on location, and you started asking me questions, and we talked about mental health, and we talked about spirituality, because you were like starting the beginning of this journey
Yeah.
of like processing
Yeah.
your feelings and your emotions, and you talked about like anxiety
Yeah.
and depression a little bit,
Yeah.
and what it was like now, because we were starting to become a little bit famous, and it was a whole thing.
That was hard.
That was
for
really
me.
hard.
Yeah.
So when did you know, because you've been public about it, when did you know that you had anxiety and you were struggling with depression?
Well, I think it really hit me when I was around like 18. It's because I realized, well, especially, yeah, I would say 18. It's when I started really wondering why I feel so low all the time. And then when I'm in groups, I can be big. It just happens naturally, and I like to entertain people. But the second I leave that group, I'm like into this really intense depression feeling. The people that were closest to me in my life, like girlfriends, for example, are probably the only people that would see that part of me. I would hide it really well around friends. I didn't feel safe to talk about it in friends. So Shout out to all my ex-girlfriends for dealing with me. Thanks, girls. But anyway, yeah. So.
And how would you respond when they would point things out to you?
I'd probably get even more closed off, and it would just go even harder.
Okay.
Until recently, late 20s is when I started really going in, and then I found the therapist that we have, and I did a lot of therapy before that, like EMDR, and that didn't quite do it. Like talk therapy kind of felt like you can only go so far for me with talk therapy. It's more so like going in and feeling it.
So you weren't really able to connect with those deeper parts,
No.
right? So when again, ex-girlfriends would tell you stuff, you would get, what would you get, defensive, angry, or just shut down? Like,
Kind
what
of
was
like
your...
disassociated almost.
Okay.
Like it was almost like I was living from here up until when I started really sinking into my body is when I realized, oh my God, there's a lot in there. Like,
And what's so interesting, if you know Brett, because he's just this dynamic talent, there's nothing that he can't do. So he taught himself the guitar and can like riff on the guitar. He taught himself how to break dance. He does these weird, crazy things with his body that you've never seen, like the zombie, where his knees and ankles bend, and he can do all of these amazing things. He can do accents, he can do comedy, he can do drama. He's acting, and he can get really emotional. And I was like, it was really hard for me to believe that here's this guy that didn't have any access to these feelings and these emotions because he's so talented. And knowing Brett for as long as I've known him and seeing his talent and seeing the way that he lights up a room and makes everybody laugh, it was one of the first times I understood the private battle that so many famous comedians have had, like Robin Williams, where I could see like, oh, wait, there's this whole other side to them that the world wasn't able to witness because you have like as one of your dear friends, you have a lot of Robin Williams in you. Like you have this like almost manic, like hilarious energy that you can just on a dime, and then you're by yourself and you're feeling all these big feelings that nobody ever knows about.
Yeah.
And like watching you over the last 8 years, like kind of go into that so that doesn't happen to you has been such a gift.
thanks, man.
Because like, first of all, I'm happy that you're here.
I'm happy to be here.
But like, I know it was a big battle for you, and yet
Yeah.
nobody would know. Like nobody, like on set, nobody knew.
Yeah, I know.
Nobody that we worked with knew.
I was really good at hiding it.
You're so good at hiding it, and it's like it all went into your work.
Yeah.
Did you had alluded earlier that some of it was like childhood, and I don't want you to expose anybody or anything that you're not comfortable with, but whatever you are able to share,
Yeah.
can you share something about what that means? Like what childhood trauma or experiences do you
Yeah.
think led to?
Well, I'll say something that I haven't ever said publicly is that I grew up, I had Tourette syndrome really bad. So like I started getting Tourette's when I was around 9 years old. And this created a lot of problems for me because back then in 1999, there wasn't TikTok with other people with Tourette's being like, look at me, I have Tourette's. Like, so I felt very alone. My parents didn't know what to do. I started not trusting my body at all because I was like, I can't even control it. So life started feeling very scary for me. All these fears would come into my mind and I'd be like, oh, that's going to happen to me because I have no control over anything now.
Like
So
what kind of stuff? What kind of fears would pop
just
in?
like, oh, my parents are going to die tomorrow. Like stuff like that. It would just pop into my head and I'd be like, oh, yeah, it's going to happen because this happened to me. So how could it not, you know? So, yeah, that's where I think a lot of my stuff feeling small started.
Yeah.
Because I was terrified going to school. And the only thing that honestly saved my life was Jim Carrey, actually. When I saw him do these movies and like Ace Ventura and all these stuff, I was able to like, I don't know, use my Tourette's as a way of like making people like me somehow. Like I was this big comedy guy now all of a sudden, and it was a way to like hide my Tourette's. So instead of like ticking, like I would do like ticks and stuff, I would be like, no, like I would just find a way to like do something funny, and then everyone was like, oh, ha, ha, ha. So I incorporated that into my personality, and then it just became my personality. But it was really like a lot of Tourette's and stuff.
Wow.
So,
Like
yeah.
turning tragedy into comedy, I
Right.
guess, was a big, almost like a coping mechanism for you.
Absolutely,
And probably gave you a sense of control over this thing that you had no control over, which
Yes.
as a kid, feeling out of control is very scary.
Oh, yeah.
Very scary.
Terrifying.
Was there anything that sort of helped you with your Tourette's as a kid? Was there an adult or a support or...
My parents did their best, but they really didn't know. They didn't know how to deal with it. So it was basically what saved my life was like my parents did put me in a lot of things. Like I was in drama school, and then plays, and so I would always be in piano lessons and taekwondo.
He's an amazing pianist. He can do everything. The guy can do everything.
That saved my life, put me in all that stuff, because then I was just busy doing other things, and I'd be ticking around when I'm playing the piano, but at least it was something I could put my energy in.
Wow.
So
And most people wouldn't know that about you unless you had just shared it, right? So obviously, it is, you've learned through your way of comedy and things of that nature to camouflage it.
Well, yeah, and I started growing out of it around like 20 is when I started. I still have it like 5% if I'm nervous or angry. It kind of like I get like I start getting tics and stuff, but I'm really good at hiding it. So, I'm not hiding it anymore. It's more so it just kind of naturally went away.
Yeah.
Managing. It seems like you learned to manage it.
Manage it. Yes. Yeah.
Just curious, do you think that the Tourette's was at all some sort of response to something emotional?
I do kind of think that sometimes. I wonder if it is.
Especially considering that as you kind of got more into your body, it started to kind of go away.
Yeah, maybe. I wonder. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm just curious.
It's hard to tell. I'll have to look into that tomorrow at 12. I'll look into it tomorrow at 12.
I mean, I think something like I had it's different, but I had a stutter when I was young, and it eventually, again, it will come it'll come back in certain, when I'm nervous or certain weird, sort of environments that I'm in. And it was a similar thing where my mom was helpful, but people just laugh at you. Kids love to find the sort of thing that makes you different. Did you feel also like, just bringing it back to masculinity, what boys can be kind of mean, right? And ruthless. And how was your relationship with other boys?
Well, they would call me spaz and stuff.
Okay.
But when I started making them laugh is when they kind of stopped calling me names. So that's when I would latched onto that, and that became kind of my identity for a long time. Was I'm the funny guy. So this is how I can, cope.
And then you became famous doing a show where you couldn't be funny.
Crazy, right?
Which was so I watched this happen.
What a trip that was
in real time, because he's like the funny guy. And then he's not allowed to be funny on the show.
That was hard.
What do you mean he's not allowed?
Well, he was playing a detective.
They really wouldn't let you. Did you want to make it funny and you couldn't?
He kept trying. Okay. He tried every scene.
One episode I went so far, because this was like the 9th episode. I remember that specifically because it was such a big moment for me. But I started improvising. I was going crazy, and Jenny, the creator of Jane the Virgin, kind of like sent me an email and be like, we're watching the dailies, you can't do that. Like, I was insane. I was going like and all of a sudden, like, Michael was this, I don't know, nutcase out of nowhere. So yeah, that was really hard. So I would just
he had so much like cop dialogue.
Oh my god, that was
so much like police dialogue.
Okay.
That was hard.
Which is not
No,
Couldn't do that.
I was like, how do I make that funny? And so sometimes I would like say it all with my eyes shut and pretend to start falling asleep. Like Sin Rostra, I was going to and I would just do these big monologues like that. I had to do something, but then eventually I found my way of being, I had to be serious at some point because that was the role. So,
but what was great is if you watched the show, which I'm sure many of our audience has, you see over the course of the 5 years, our real personalities got to come into our characters.
Yes.
So there were episodes where he really did get to be funny and do crazy things.
Right.
Or like we would have these fantasy moments that weren't real where our characters would be slapping each other or, doing ridiculous things.
Yeah.
And the biggest challenge for me over those 5 years was I was not able to act with Brett and keep a straight face. So every time we were in a scene together and we had to be mad at each other because we loved each other so much, he was always doing something that made me laugh, always. And I could never keep a straight face. And then, we were always behind on the show, always behind. We were doing, so much television, and it was always like, Justin. And I'm like, Brett keeps making me laugh.
That was so fun. We had a lot of good times on that show though together.
So that with your good times, share with us a little bit about this. And I don't want to make this about you and Justin exactly, but maybe we can glean from some of this experience. I'm imagining you on a show with Justin, who outwardly is this tall, beautiful, strong, manly, masculine person. that everybody likes, that does big grand things, that is successful outside of the show, but doing other things that are growing traction and things of that nature. What was that like for you to be working with someone who at least appeared outwardly that he had it all together?
Well, honestly, it was great because Justin let me be myself fully. And that's why it's like I had such a great time with you. The second I was like, oh, I can joke with this guy and be an idiot, I was like, I love him. Like this, because that's all we really want, right? Is people to make you feel like you can be yourself. And Justin really made me feel like I could be myself. So, yeah.
Well, interestingly enough, you say that about me, but I was the one that was having private feelings about Brett. I had quit acting for a few years before Jane the Virgin came along, just to focus on directing. And I was starting to build what we are doing now with Wayfarer Studios. And I never really felt like I was a great actor because I was always cast in roles based on how I looked. And then I got this role, and here we were shooting the pilot. I hadn't acted in a couple years. And I was like watching the scenes with Brett and Gina's like a savant actress who's just like literally she could be laughing and then they say action and she's like sobbing and you're like, how? That's not. There's something
strange.
It's a weird thing, and she's so brilliant and talented.
Yeah.
And Brett was just as talented, and these cast members were so talented. And I remember just feeling like, ooh, I'm not supposed to be here. I think they made a mistake, or am I only here because of the way that I look? And then the more I got to know Brett, and I'd see that he was funny, and then I'd see him like be emotional. I remember the proposal scene in the pilot, and you're like, and I was like, this guy is so good. And I was the one that was having a lot of feelings about like, man, I wish I was as good an actor as Brett. Even so that when they decided to kill off your character, I was like, it should have been me. You put so much into the show. You put so much into the character, and you cared so much, and you were so dynamic. And I was always insecure. And then also because we had this love triangle thing happening, right? It was like Team Michael, Team Raphael.
Yeah.
I would go and act with Gina, and it was this strange thing where I was like, oh, she's going to be disappointed because it's not Brett. Because when I would watch you guys together, it was like magic. So I dealt with that a lot over the course of those few years.
But you were so great on the show. Like,
Oh,
it never showed. So
Stop, please.
it was really great.
But
you were great.
but it's real. But like we all have these private battles, and like that's the imposter syndrome for me has been a huge thing that I've dealt with for years.
Yeah.
I mean, Jamie reminds me all the time that I'm just not that funny.
That's true. No, I'm just kidding. No, I think you're funny. I think you're funny.
But seeing that
Really?
and seeing you, oh God! But like you just had all of these things that I wish I had, and so that was just something that I don't think I'd ever shared with you.
No, yeah.
But it was something that I had to like remind myself that I was enough, and that I belonged. And then when you left, which I know was also really hard, I was like, oh man, my person's gone. Like,
yeah.
my dude.
Well, I was worried that when I left that we'd never see each other again. And it was weird leaving because I was like, oh, they're all going to stay then?
What was that like for you? I mean, you handled it so well, but what was that like for you when Cordero was killed?
I was axed. I feel like it was, I did feel, I was going to really miss you guys and being in that like, I felt like we were all really close in a way, and we went through the same thing together of this like new. None of us were really famous, or
Just
whatever
Jaime.
you want to say. Just Jaime.
Just Jaime in Mexico.
Yeah. So we all dealt with this new thing together. But yeah, what was the question?
How did you feel when you got fired or killed off the show? And like, what did you go through? Like, did you struggle as like Brett, the human, the man? Did you have like feelings of like, I'm not good enough, I'm not enough? Is that why this happened? Like, I'm just curious what that was like for you, because it was like we were a family and we were doing this every episode, every week for 2 years, and then boom. And we didn't know.
Yeah. I think at this point, I remember now. I felt like I was drowning in my life. So doing the show 9 months of the year for like, sometimes 14 hours a day and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It was too much for me, honestly. It was too much for my mental health. I couldn't sustain my life. I kind of felt like I was being pulled from one thing, and I had no like balance at all. Mm-hmm. So I was kind of relieved when that happened. I'm not going to lie. But then I also felt kind of lost afterwards. I was like, okay, I've been putting my effort into this thing, and now I'm just sitting with myself now. Why do I feel so miserable? Like, I didn't have 14 hours a day to be like, yay.
Distracting yourself.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
How'd you get through that?
well, I spent a lot. I didn't act I didn't act very much for a bit. I did a pilot that was like a week long or something, and then I really I think ever since then I've kind of taken acting more sparingly. Like my main focus is my mental health.
Yeah, you're really selective with what you do, which I just
Yeah.
love about you so much.
Yeah. And I would think if comedy was this sort of shield that you used or this sort of armor, then losing that role must have had a deeper meaning to it.
A little bit. During that time, it also kind of made me realize, like, what is the work I really want to do? Because it was hard for me being the serious guy for so long.
Right.
And it kind of made me go, like, I really need to get this energy I have out. And it made me realize, like, what I really want to do.
You know, you both talked about masking so much,
yeah,
right?
right.
Like, and for you, it was masking, you know, am I not
Insecurity,
enough?
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And for you, again, the way that you found comedy, like comedy saved you
Yes,
as
it
a
did.
kid, right?
It really did, yeah.
And so, but the things that allow us to survive don't, as children, don't necessarily allow us to thrive as adults.
It's true.
You probably had to figure out, what is my relationship to the, and comedy, performance, acting, whatever, right? That bucket is big.
I just figured out my relationship. Well, not figured out fully. I got ways to go. But I'd say 3 years ago is when I really started going, because I used to post really fun, kind of wacky videos on Instagram. And now it just doesn't feel right anymore. Like, I feel like I'd be faking it. Because I'm dealing with this all my life kind of now. Like, once you start doing really intense therapy and learning how to, the stuff that we do with the...
Learning how to really talk to your inner child
Yeah.
and hold that part of you that you've ignored for so long.
Yeah, and face it and feel it fully. You realize that, like, I don't necessarily right now in my life feel very funny. So, and I need to honor that because... so much of my identity was wrapped into that. Like, oh, now what? Now I can't be funny now? Like, what's my problem? Like, I went through that for a little bit. It's been a journey of understanding, like, who am I when I'm not the funny person? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And being okay with being vulnerable and wearing my heart on my sleeve and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. Because I never used to do that. I used to just walk around and be a nutcase.
What did Can you describe to our audience what depression feels like?
Yeah.
Because I believe that a lot of people, specifically men, but a lot of people are walking around with depression and they don't know it.
Yeah. It's this kind of low grade, not even low, sometimes it's high grade, but sense of, it's just, you just, like, the body language would be just like this, like, just kind of hunched over, and everything kind of feels a little bit meaningless. And it's just this ache. It's like this intense ache, I guess I would just describe it. And
Even when things are well
Yeah.
around your life.
well, when things are well, I notice it turns to numbness, and then there's this numbness in the background. And so it's like, because it never really goes away unless you go into it. You got to go into it and feel it and understand it fully is when it starts to dissipate, I've noticed. But, it's hard, especially in our industry, that when you book a role or when something good happens externally, it almost pushes it down a little bit. And then so that you can go and do this thing, and you're like, oh yeah, look, I'm worth something. I'm working. I'm making money. And then there's just this numbness in the background that you never really get to until you get to it, and then you realize it's trying to say something.
What was if you can remember, do you remember like your lowest moment?
Like in my life?
Yeah, like your lowest, like when depression felt like it had taken over you, that like it was in control. Like, did you ever feel like this life was too much?
Yeah, absolutely. Many times. Even on Jane the Virgin, like sometimes I would get back to like my house and just I didn't have the capacity for my life anymore. It felt like I just didn't have it in me. It's too much. But I felt that way as a teenager sometimes too. I had hypochondria for like a couple years that came out of nowhere, where I was like constantly afraid of having cancer. I was always like, what my lymph nodes?
I've been there. I've
yeah.
been there.
Yeah, you have?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Man, Where did that come from? I don't know. I think it comes from my lack of trust in life that started when I was a kid about the Tourette's thing.
Right.
Yeah.
And so then I was like, I had this thought, and then I really grabbed onto the thought, and now I'm like, I went to get like 9 ultrasounds, and finally the ultrasound guy was like, "Look, man,
You're not dying.
you're not dying."
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, because your body feels like it's betraying you in
Exactly.
a way, right?
Right.
And so then it creates, how else are you going to betray me? And I couldn't control it because I didn't know it was coming as a kid. But maybe if I can plan for it, then I can control it. Do you think it's an element of that?
I think so. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Mine started when I was a kid, and doing a lot of the work that we've done, I remembered that I would get hurt to get attention.
Oh,
So and then it got to a point where I just feel like I became a powerful manifester. Like I'm the tallest person in my family by like 5 inches, 6 inches, because I didn't want to be short. Or I just remember always, I got to get out of school. So school was terrible, so I would get sick, something.
wow.
And then I would get attention. Or my dad would pick me up from work. But then that turned into feeling like, oh wait, what else am I going to create, for attention? And when I started to do my last days, which really is what led to so much of my success, I spent the better part of my 20s with people who were dying of terminal illnesses. And I took on so much of their energy because I was like the last person that they were interacting with outside of like their personal lives who was in charge of telling their stories.
Wow.
And so much energy transference happened. So like literally their energy came into my body. I had no idea. And I finished that show at like 28, 29. And suddenly I was like, oh wait, I have a headache. Do I have glioblastoma? Like Ryan, the first person, or, Claire from who inspired 5 Feet Apart, or Zach, who had osteosarcoma. Like I had an ache in my hip. And I just started, all of, the 30, 40 stories I told were just living in my body. So I was the same way.
Wow.
I was like,
That
is there
makes
something wrong with
sense.
me? I have so much time on Google, like trying to figure out, am I okay? What's wrong? Because I had torn so many
Google.
muscles over the course of my life. I'm like, wait, do I have it all? And all of this. And then I had to go into it, and I realized like, oh my God, it's actually not that.
Yeah.
It's the little boy who wanted attention. It's like,
Wow. Yeah.
it's the intuitive and the empathetic man who was taking on these feelings, who didn't even know, because I couldn't feel I didn't know that I was empathetic.
Yeah.
But I was absorbing so much of
Yeah.
it. So I totally understand what that's like. And I know a lot of people have suffered from hypochondria or suffer from like this deep fear of dying, which really is a fear of not being in control.
Right.
So interesting.
Yeah,
I'm
that
glad
is
you guys share this. I don't have that at all.
Good for you.
Jamie doesn't have most of the things
Yeah,
that
most
I
of the
have.
stuff.
And I
That's
say that
awesome.
not as like to compare. I'm saying listening to it.
You know what you do have?
Tell
A
me.
beautiful voice.
Oh, yes.
Okay, go on.
I've never not felt enough. I've never been depressed. I don't mean not. We all experience depression, like you lose a child or you get a divorce. There's an event that happens that causes some sadness, and you might go through it for
You
a
have
few
dips.
days.
I've seen you have dips.
Yeah,
for
yeah.
a
There's
couple
something
days.
like that happens. You're like feeling sad about that. That I think we all feel. My mother, who is bipolar, will feel those feelings even when there's not something to name necessarily, right? It's not like, oh, because my son got into a car accident and I'm sad or this. It's just the next week. No matter what's good around you, you're feeling something that's in a depressed state. And I don't relate to it myself. I relate to it because I've experienced it and witnessed it in that regard. But I think it's so important because there are so many that do experience it, either because they can name it or not. And the fact that someone like yourself, and you as well, Jay, can speak to it and also not feel shame about it and allow other people to listen and go like, you know what, I kind of experienced that as well, and I can't seem to get out of it. So, but there are ways that we can get out of it, or ways that we can at least address it enough so that we're not stuck. And some people deal with being stuck in different ways. Some people self-medicate. Some people go really extreme and do other things, sabotage their own life, whatever it may be.
And some people do art and sell it on Instagram.
That's
Yes,
that's
indeed.
what I do.
So right before you tell us about your art and Instagram,
Yeah.
tell us, aside from the therapy that you've done,
Yeah.
I know that you're super spiritual and you have a connection in the way that you do. What are some of those practices or things that you do that give that meaning to your life? You know, that doesn't keep you stuck.
Well, yeah, meditation's been huge. Vipassana meditation is what I really do a lot.
What is that?
I went on it's basically sensations, body scanning over and over again kind of thing, and being able to accept everything that's going on, kind of just giving it the space it needs to be. I noticed that when you don't identify with it and you just kind of watch it, it really has a lot of space to move through you. And Vipassana meditation taught me that. I did like a 10-day silent retreat, and that really was a big game changer. At least it gave me the foundation to learn how to do that properly. And then with the therapy that we do, it's kind of, teaches you that as well. Rock climbing's been huge for me. Getting out there, moving my body. It's also like a mental game too, a little bit. So it really gets you focused. And then, my art has been huge for me. Yeah.
Tell us about your art.
Well, my art. So, all right, see ya. No, my art's been awesome, man. I started doing it. Well, I really started doing it like probably 4 months ago, and it's something I really probably do 6 hours a day.
Wow.
Really?
Yeah.
He used to draw on set.
Yeah, doodles.
Like he used to do little doodles of aliens and
Yeah.
fun things,
Yeah.
and we're always like, again, everything he touches, he's so good at.
A lot. It helps me process things. Sometimes when I'm drawing something and then I realize, oh, I'm expressing my sadness right now in a form of an alien doodle, or I'm expressing my childhood, how that felt when I was a kid, when I was joyful. So a lot like my art, it's like a weird thing. It sounds kind of corny, but it does kind of speak to me in a way. Like I learn a lot about myself when I look at my art at the end, and I can always tell what state of mind I'm in when I'm drawing something, and if it looks sad or there's like an alien crying or something, it's like, oh yeah, I am actually really sad right now. So it's interesting. So sometimes I don't really even have an idea of what I'm going to do. I just kind of put my pencil down and start going, and then this thing happens, and it's like it kind of teaches me about myself sometimes in that moment, or what I'm needing. Yeah.
Beautiful. And are you doing it just for yourself, or are you doing it for public?
Now I'm doing it. I'm selling it now too.
You are?
Yeah, which has been really fun for me.
Where do we find it?
On Instagram.
We can go to, what's your Instagram?
Brett Dier.
We can buy it there. We can click something and buy it.
Well, I post it on my story once a week, and I am making a website, so that'll be available in probably November. I'm trying to get a lot of stuff together for that.
That's so cool. I'm so happy
so
for you,
good.
man.
Thanks, man. Thanks for letting me talk about it. I appreciate it.
So why aliens?
I love aliens, man. They make me happy.
Do you believe in them?
I do. I think I do. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Especially when that, when NASA released that photo of all those galaxies?
Yeah.
I mean, there's got to be one alien in there.
There's got to be.
Come on.
I mean, the galaxies they're
It's
all
crazy.
multiple times the size of our own.
Yeah.
Every star was a galaxy.
Billions of planets in
The
like
idea.
each one or something?
How arrogant
Yes.
is it of
Okay.
us
I was
to
gonna
think
say.
that this universe
Very
that's got
narcissistic.
endless, infinite amount of stars and planets,
Yeah.
galaxies, universes, all within this, that our one little nothing,
Oh, yeah.
as wonderful and beautiful as it is the only one that has life. Like, how arrogant is that?
Very arrogant.
One of the things I love about Jamie and I are both Baha'is in the Baha'i faith. Baha'u'llah says that every fixed star has its planets, and every planet's its creatures.
That's dope.
I'm
I like that.
whoa.
I like that. Yeah, so aliens, basically.
Aliens, okay,
That's
great.
what that means.
How crazy that like there's so much happening in the world right now that like all the governments are saying, "Oh yeah, aliens
Yes.
exist," and people are like
We don't care.
ignoring
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, yeah,
We're-
yeah.
We
We've,
know.
we've reached
Yeah.
the point where we're not even able to hold the fact that there might be extraterrestrial life because we're dealing with like
Too much. Just too much going
partisan
on.
politics.
Too much.
Yeah.
We're just
It
getting
is too
them
much.
like overloaded,
Yes. Someone was
overstimulated.
like, yeah, unless they can pay my student loans, I'm not interested.
In aliens.
I relate.
Yeah.
But it seems like a lot of what you're talking about is so much of depression is disconnection.
Yeah.
And I think
And addiction.
And addiction for sure. But it's hard to like pinpoint, right? Connection feels like something, but disconnection feels numb and feels like nothing.
Yeah.
And so it's hard to sort of know what it is. And so all these, rock climbing and art, and that's connection to your body, to the world, right? You're like touching something, you're doing something, you're accomplishing something. Do you also connect with other people? Do you find it easier to connect with men? You brought up ex-girlfriends before. Like, do you feel like your depression also severed that ability to really connect with women that you were in partnerships with?
That's a really good question. And actually, I feel more comfortable connecting with women, actually. And I've always had a difficult time really connecting to people, I think. And I notice it now, especially, where I'm like, doing all this work on myself, I realized like I have a tough time because connection feels unsafe sometimes. It's like, it feels like, oh, I'm about to get trapped if I connect with this person, or like this person's going to shut me down and not be, nice to me or something. Like I'm going to get hurt because I think I've been hurt a lot in my life. So my body's carrying a lot of that.
Okay.
So I'm trying to move through a lot of that in my life right now. And I am trying to connect more. And
Is that what that tattoo on your arm is for?
no, the remember?
Yeah, it says remember.
I'm about to get that removed.
So that he forgets.
I forgot. Yeah, it's getting over top. I also have an alien meditating on my bicep.
Oh,
If
wow.
you want to get a close up of my bicep.
That is
You're looking good.
Thanks, man.
hilarious.
What is the remember? What was that?
I had this awakening a long time ago and felt like I needed to get that on my arm, which I don't. I could have just had the awakening and lived my life. But I was like, gotta remember. And then he did it way too big. And obviously, they put a stencil on, but it was too late. I said yeah to the stencil because I didn't want to hurt his feelings, being it's too big. I really should have got it about this big.
So what you're saying is
right there.
you got a tattoo in some way also because you were people pleasing.
Probably. I think I didn't want to hurt the guy's feelings.
Yeah. Are you?
It's not how I see it, though. I see it actually after what you've been talking about. Now, it doesn't matter how I see it because it's on you, and how you see it matters.
Yeah.
But listening to what you're sharing, to me, it's like, remember that I have purpose, that I'm enough, that whatever
Yeah.
I'm going through will not last
Right.
forever.
Yeah, that is good. It does change. It does change. Sometimes I put some groceries down there in some pen.
But before we move on to, and I want to talk about people pleasing. I'm so interested in your question. Like, I do want to stay on the partnerships thing with women, right? Because as you're talking, I'm thinking about like so many relationships that I've had with men where I feel like that is what was going on, but I internalized something completely different about the situation.
Oh, I love where this is going.
Right? And so my interpretation was like, I'm not enough, right? Like, he's not interested in me, or I'm not pretty enough, or I'm not being, if I was different, then he would be able to connect with me, or we would have the relationship that and it can be very confusing because I'm wondering if this is how it came through with these, girlfriends that you had, where there's a desire for connection.
Yeah.
And then there's this break, right? And then it's when you're on the other end of it, it's not just like, I don't want to connect, because that would be easy. I'd be like, okay, he doesn't want, this is not interesting to me. But because there's this back and forth sometimes with men who are, I think, emotionally disconnected from themselves. When you're in a relationship with a guy like that, you end up making it about yourself and not really getting often the resolution that you're offering right now, I think, for yourself. So what would be your message to your ex-girlfriends, or maybe there's one in particular, not naming any names, but what would you tell them now that you didn't know then?
Well,
Wow, that's a great question.
I think, I also think a lot of it has to do with, timing in life too. It's like, I don't think I was necessarily ready for some of these relationships, but I want connection, and when there's a spark, it's like you go, and then sometimes I stay too long because I don't want to hurt them, or there's this fear of not wanting to be alone sometimes, and all these things. So there's a lot going on which keeps you in a relationship that deep down isn't right. But I would probably say, I'm very vocal now because I'm a very honest person because I understand myself a lot better than I did. But what would I say to my ex-girlfriends? Oh, geez. Check out my art on Instagram, @Brett. No, I'm just kidding. No, I would say...
Joke.
I don't know what I would say. I don't know. That's a tough question. Well, I loved all of them. We're all going through stuff, and it's not anyone's fault. That's the thing. Like, even stuff I've had to deal with certain relationships, it's never their fault. It's like we have a life before we met, and we're still processing that life before we met, and sometimes it gets taken out on the other person and these kinds of things. But to not personalize it and blame it on yourself is a big thing for sure, and it's easy to do, especially when you're not getting enough in a relationship. It's easy to go, oh, it's me.
Well, it's
it's
so
my
vulnerable,
fault.
right?
Yeah.
You're in many cases literally naked, the most intimate, physically, emotionally with someone, and so it's and you're playing out your stuff too, right? You're receiving, right? Like, information is not objective.
Yeah.
Tell me something.
Yeah.
90 seconds
Oh shit. Okay.
or 75 seconds.
Okay.
We're in an elevator, kind of like an elevator pitch, right?
Okay.
And I ask, hey, Brett, tell me who you are. Give me 75-second version, really quick. This is the last time I'm ever gonna see you, and you want to give me a glimpse of who you are. Tell me that in 75 seconds.
Well, my name is Brett. I was born in London, Ontario. I'm a very sensitive person, but I'm working on things. And I love to create. I love to bring joy to the world. I hope that's what I can do. Sometimes I feel guilty if I bring anyone down, and if I ever have, I'm so sorry. I have a cat named Noonie who I love so much. I love rock climbing. It brings me joy. I love making art. I love to act. I want to make people feel things. That's why I love to act, whether it's make someone sad or laugh or whatever it is. I just want people to feel. I can be funny. I can be goofy, but only when I want to now. Before I felt like I had to. I like to read graphic novels. Love them. I love being inspired by other people's art. And I do like long walks on the beach, to be quite frank. And aliens are real. What can I say?
Thank you. I love that. You know, I in listening to you, I believe that, I think many people believe, but I can, for myself, believe that we are here in existence on this planet, not to serve ourselves, ultimately, at the end of the day. That we are here to serve humanity. Mm-hmm. To bring forth an ever-advancing civilization. So we can't be in the same place that we were 100 years ago or 500 years ago, 1,000 years ago, right? We have to keep advancing, which is why we're given different spiritual teachers to kind of enlighten us, bring us to another level, why we do work on ourselves as well, but not just so that I can be more content, but that so that humanity can be more content and continue to grow. I really believe that's our purpose.
I believe that too. I think that's a beautiful thing.
So all that you've been through and what you're doing, ultimately, and a lot of what you had said there was in service to others, to bring people joy, to make people feel something. Tell me how specifically you might, or do you think you might, do things that actually are tangibly that you can point to if you had children or nieces or nephews that you could say, you know, these are some of the ways that I have done to advance society. Is it through championing women, championing race, championing whatever it may be, championing those with disabilities, speaking about my pain and struggle so that others can learn? How do you feel that you have identified your service to humanity?
Well, I love to bring joy to people. That's something that means a lot to me. I like bringing people up and making them laugh because I know that when you're laughing, it's really hard to feel sad. I love the projects that I do. I want there to have meaning in them. So I've done some projects that have meaning and that do kind of, you know, when you watch it, hopefully makes you think a different way. Like even Jane the Virgin was a really important show for that time. I want to bring people together. I really try not to judge people. I just want to bring people together and bring joy. And if I can do that through my acting or making stupid videos or through my art, that's where I'm at right now. And hopefully the more I heal, the more I can do. Because that's really the goal. I do want to be of service to people, and I want to make this place fun and joyful.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
I think you're doing it.
Thanks.
You are doing it.
Thanks, man.
Just even in this one moment right now.
Oh, thanks.
You know, I mean, you've been doing it for a while now,
and
but
you
you'll
too.
continue to.
You too. You guys do beautiful things. I just wanted to know. I don't know you much, but you seem beautiful.
Thank you.
She is. Liz is one of the sweet, sweet souls that walk this planet and does a lot of work and cares about everyone, cares about men and our well-being.
That's awesome.
And so she deals with some of our crap,
Yeah.
reflects
There's a lot
some
of
of the
it.
stuff that's really good, learns herself, hopefully, a thing or two. But we learn a lot from her. She's really wonderful.
Yeah. Sweet. How are you feeling, man?
I'm just so happy that we're doing this.
Yeah, me too. Me too. And you quit caffeine recently. You're quitting.
Coffee 2.5 years ago.
That's big because I remember you used to drink a lot of it.
I was that's how I was
IV.
surviving.
Yeah.
When I started doing the work that Brett and I do, which is so much about somatic awareness and release, I realized I could not feel my body. I was like when you say you were just head up, which is what so many of us men, by the way, are head up, right? That's why in Man Up I joke like the longest distance a man will ever travel is the distance between his head and his heart. And I just was completely numb, and I was just living off caffeine and like do. I was stuck in the hustle and 14 hours a day on Jane and doing these other businesses and stuff, and I was just living on caffeine.
I don't know how you did it.
I did it because of coffee.
Yeah.
And how long have you been off coffee?
A year off coffee now. And
Yeah.
and then I quit matcha lattes a month ago.
What was that like?
That was hard. But matcha started hurting my stomach. aligning. Like I started getting,
Yeah, you get old, and then
Yeah.
you start. No, it's true. Like for me, alcohol, it's a little bit like my body can't. I mean, my body
Can't
can't
take
handle
it.
alcohol in the same way, and I'm like, thank you.
So how did I do?
Oh man,
Was I okay?
are you kidding? This is, I mean, from the first time I met you, when you showered in my house,
Right.
which is, I don't know, how long ago did Jane premiere?
10 years ago,
10
right?
years ago?
No. It couldn't have been 10
9.
years ago.
9.
Well, so we
2014.
shot the pilot in 2013 or 14? 2014.
2014, yeah.
Okay.
So in February or March, in March it will be 10 years
Holy moly.
Wow.
since
That's
we shot
crazy.
The,
So
since,
way
since we
back
shot
then.
the pilot. Yeah.
Wow.
But you know, what I love that we're doing.
And we don't look a day older than when we shot that
Not a
pilot.
day.
I hope
do we?
not. Is there a mirror anywhere?
You have we have listeners, and I think most people that listen to our podcast don't really care about celebrity in the sense of like, what's your house look like? What car do you drive? And what are you doing? And who's your latest girlfriend? And all that stuff, which is why oftentimes we watch like Fallon or things like that, late night shows, so that we can see celebrities and what they're doing. I think most people listen to this because they want to hear how people that they may not expect, how they're experiencing real life.
Yeah.
Because oftentimes we separate those celebrities from their neighbors. So to hear what you're going through in real life, which makes it human and just names it in a way that's okay, for our listeners, especially men, that can hear you and be like, yeah, I experienced some of that stuff. I'm really grateful that we have that just listeners can hear a real man talk about life, some of his joys, some of his struggles. We did this with Anthony Ramos, who's killing it right now, and he shared a lot of his stuff. And we got so many responses of like, oh, it's so wonderful to hear someone that I never expected to go through some of this stuff. So thanks for doing that.
Yeah, dude, thanks for creating a safe environment where I can do it in. And I felt genuinely good to do it. So thank you.
Thank you, man.
Yeah.
And then just, for any of the men that are listening, if you are someone that has a hard time building and creating male friendships, Brett, what do you think it was for you and me specifically? Because here we were two men brought together on this show. We were playing people that were not supposed to like each other, and we had our own little love fest. What was it, do you think, between us that allowed for there to be such a deep, meaningful, vulnerable relationship? Because I think that men struggle to have the kind of friendship maybe that you and I do. And keep in mind, Brett and I, I was just married. I'd been married a year, just got pregnant, had a whole life happening. So Brett and I, we didn't hang out. We were together every day, but we didn't hang out on the weekends that often. Yeah. But we had a deep, meaningful friendship to the point where he could call me if he needed something and I could call him. Mm-hmm. How does a man listening to this show who desires the kind of relationship that you and I had, a work relationship that turned into a real friendship, how does a man go about that? What was it about you and me that made it possible?
I feel like we were pretty open with each other right off the bat for whatever reason.
So vulnerability.
Vulnerability, absolutely. If you got stuff going on, don't hide it from your friends. I feel like you never hid anything from me really, and I never did anything with you. I think there was this openness with us. So vulnerability, absolutely.
I mean, I even told you a few times that I was intimidated by you and your acting.
Yeah, you did.
Well, that
So
probably
it wasn't-
deepened the friendship, right? Revealing a weakness.
I thought you were just being nice.
No, I was being serious. That was my way to be I had to let some of it out because
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
but and you took it and you held it. And so vulnerability, you think that was the thing, but neither one of us were posturing and trying to act like we were bigger or better than the other one. It was more like, hey man, this is crazy.
Yeah, that's what it was. Vulnerability. And, we both just naturally let each other be ourselves with each other. There was no, I have to be a certain way now around you,
Some of my favorite memories were when we would be in between scenes and we'd go into each other's dressing rooms and just hang out.
Yeah, that was dope.
And it was just, we would just talk. And
Well,
we'd
let's
just
do
hang
that
out.
real quick, just at the end of our podcast here. Rapid fire.
Okay.
We're going to go back to Jane. For all those who are listening who are Jane the Virgin fans.
And if you're not a Jane the Virgin fan and you've never seen the show, I'm so sorry there was so much Jane the Virgin on the show.
No, this is good. This
Go
is
watch
good. Tell us, were you Team Raphael or Team Michael as an objective watcher?
I started with being Team Michael, and because I was like, I shouldn't be on. This is not Raphael is not a. You wouldn't want to root for Raphael at the beginning of the
Rapid
season.
fire.
But then I became Team Jane.
Team Jane?
Team Jane.
Yeah.
Oh, nice. How about you?
I think in the end I became Team Jane, obviously. I just wanted her to be happy.
Yeah.
But I was Team Michael for sure. Because you're playing him and you want him,
All right. Who was the funniest person on set?
Brett.
Who was the
Thanks, Justin.
most the sweetest
Brett, and then Jaime.
Jaime was really funny.
Jaime was very funny too.
Jaime, okay.
Jaime's been on our show as well.
Who was the most generous? Everybody was generous, but who was like the most generous person on set?
I'd say you. You and Gina, I would say. Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Who fought the most on set?
Who fought the most?
I don't know.
I never really fought.
I feel like Jaime fought with a few directors.
Jaime.
There's a few directors that Jaime fought with. But
Yeah.
Who do you think inspired the most of you guys to like be your best? Like who just was like a coach that just made you guys feel like you could go and champion the world?
I think Gina,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah,
I think one of the things to talk about also
so.
is like, Gina, and I write about Gina in my book because she really was a force, but also I write about a specific moment, and this was in season, I don't know what season it was, 3 or 4, where I was afraid to go to Gina for advice on a scene. I was feeling insecure, and as a man, what are we taught? We're taught to fake it till you make it, to posture, to be like, no, I got this, and like put on confidence. And I would do that when I would go to set a lot, and then deep down I was like, man, she's so freaking good. I like want to get advice, but I don't want her to think that I'm not a good actor, so I don't want to ask her for advice. And so I struggled being vulnerable with her. And then it was shortly after your character died, and it was just me and her in all these scenes together. And I remember going to her one day and asking her for how she would play this specific moment. It was like a big acting turn, and there was some comedy in there. And I remember she looked at me, and she was like, oh, here you are, welcome. She's like, welcome.
Oh, wow.
Almost like she'd been waiting for me to ask her for 4 years.
That's awesome.
And from that moment in the show, our chemistry just like dialed up times 10.
Yeah.
And
Love it.
And it was a huge moment for me as a man to be able to go to a woman who is arguably better at this thing than me and say, can you help me? I could never do
love
that
that.
because I thought that by the admission of me asking her for help, it would make me feel like I wasn't good enough. I wasn't a leader. She couldn't trust me.
Right.
Because we have all this stuff as men, like, oh, I have to, like the captain of the ship can't be scared. Every captain of the ship is scared.
Also,
So-
if the captain doesn't know his weakness, he's not a
not
good captain.
Yeah.
If the captain of the team, a football team, doesn't know the weakness, he's not a good captain.
Yeah, you have to be able to make mistakes and lose and get advice. So she gave me this advice, and then I remember being like feeling free from that moment on.
good.
And Gina was great with all of us.
Yeah.
With
she's epic.
sharing her really natural skill set.
Yeah.
So she was definitely a leader on that show.
Absolutely.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
How you feeling, Brett?
I feel good, man.
Are you happy you did the show?
Absolutely.
So
Are you happy I did the show?
I love. Can I just
So very.
because I love this because I feel like the takeaway is share something that makes you weak with a woman. Like if you're a guy listening, because it seems like
And a
that
man.
is and a man too, obviously. But I love that kind of keeps coming up. And again, vulnerability I think can feel like a buzzword that people don't be vulnerable. It's like I don't even know where to begin. Like share something that you feel you can't share with someone. You know, that's a
And I think we have to be careful as men. I think that there's also some discernment in that. And I think we have to be really careful because there are certain women that I don't believe as men we should be sharing vulnerable things with. And I think we have to be really aware and open and be paying attention to make sure that we're not oversharing, number
Right.
one, and that we're in a safe place with the person before we share.
Right.
Because there are some men who will just start a date and the first thing will be like, blah, 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 blah.
Right,
and they like
dump.
verbally
right trauma dump. Yeah.
and we don't want to do that either.
Right.
And also, you want to make sure you get to know the person a little bit, maybe
Yes.
before you share something
Yeah.
very vulnerable. Because the fact of the matter is, both men and women, not all of us are at a place where we can hold someone else's trauma. And many people experience other people using vulnerability against them, which is why we don't share. So I would just have some discernment, maybe. It was the only thing. You're on a date, it's going well, share something vulnerable.
Yeah.
Versus, but don't like lead with it. That would be the only thing that I would.
Yeah, or again, you can share it. It's there's a difference between emotional expression and emotional responsibility. And I think sharing like this is something that I'm working on, right?
Yes.
Like a weakness that you know that you're handling. It's not just like I do this horrible thing, blah. I think that's even hot, right? Like when a guy takes accountability or takes responsibility for something that he knows is this sort of flaw or whatever we want to call it, right? This I hate even calling it a flaw or a weakness,
It's not,
but
because we're all human. We're all
yes,
humaning in this human world.
Yes.
Yeah, we are. And we're all going to die, so there's nothing to really...
Eventually, aliens
That's
are going to take
true.
over.
Yeah, eventually.
Yeah.
All right, let's wrap it up with asking our last question. Justin, do you remember what it is?
Oh my God, I think I do.
Was that the last question?
I didn't for a
That's the
second.
last
I literally didn't, and then I remembered. Hey, Brett
Yeah,
Dier.
yeah.
Of Jane the Virgin fame.
Right.
What does it mean to
Yeah.
you to be man enough?
Well, to be open, vulnerable, and super cute. Have grace for yourself. That's something that took me because
Oh, I love that.
Because it feels like men can be hard on themselves, that kind of thing. And it's I just think grace is such a beautiful thing that a lot of men don't do for themselves a lot.
Oh, yeah.
I would say that. So be graceful, learn grace, and surrender to it.
Hey, I know that you don't feel funny anymore,
Yeah.
and you're only doing comedy every once in a while when you feel called to it. But can you at least leave us with a couple of your impressions that are so great, please?
Sure. Here's Fire Marshal Bill. You know Fire Marshal Bill from Jim Carrey?
Oh, yeah.
Have you heard
You
of
will
him?
you will in a second.
I will.
This one. Let me show you something. So that's Fire Marshal Bill. Here's SpongeBob. And
Wow.
here's Joe from Family. Hey, Peter. And then what else can I do here?
Wow.
Here's Peter's laugh. Sweet. And then that's it.
Yay.
And Brett's a breakdancer, by the way.
Yeah, you
too.
want to see?
Do
Oh,
it.
yeah.
No. That's it.
You know, he used to be a breakdancer.
Did you really?
Well,
Yeah. When
Wait, I'm
hip hop
sorry,
was invented.
what?
When it was invented. Oh, come on now.
That's sick. We
Godly.
should battle after the show.
Let's do it, man. I might break, though.
That's why
Literally
that's
break.
why it's
Literally.
breakdance.
It'll be a real break dance.
Yeah, you're doing it right then.
Oh, it's been so awesome.
Thanks
having
for
you.
having me.
Man, thank you so much.
Brett.
Do I shake all your hands now?
Please.
I'm gonna. Thanks, Jeff.
Yeah.
Nice to
Brett,
meet you.
thank
That was awesome.
you. So great meeting you too.
Cool.
I forgot how to sign off the show.
Try
so
it.
Why don't you?
Well, if you like what you heard, subscribe and follow our podcast for more wherever you get your podcasts. It's free on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify,
All the spots.
and it's on. Oh, if you want to see Justin's beautiful face, because you've seen ours for a while, but Justin's here, and so you should be watching this on YouTube. That's right. And seeing Brett's impressions and
Hi.
cuteness. Yeah.
And also buy Brett's art on his Instagram.
Check
Yeah.
it out, guys.
Yeah.
Hopefully my website will be up in November.
All right. Until next time, I'm Justin Baldoni.
I'm Liz Plank.
I can't. I love seeing you stumble because, Justin, you do things so gracefully and wonderfully so often that when you stumble, I get
I
great
stumble
joy
all
out
the
of it.
time. You know what Jamie says? Jamie says I'm Steve Urkel in the body of Gaston.
Oh,
That's how Jamie
wow.
describes me all the time.
That
really
is a
sweet.
really great way to put it.
I like that.
That's sweet.
There you go.
It's true.
Can I do that?
All right, till the next time, this is Mad Enough. We'll see you.
Bye.
Bye.